most of us will have no idea what to do in the cockpit of an airplane. And just the act of piloting one of these giant metal birds is impressive enough. But today, we're going to meet some pilots who took things to a whole new level, including the crew that had landed a plane after the pilot was sucked out the window, a plane that landed with one wing, and a pilot who landed with no landing gear at all. Hold on tight, subscribe to the channel, and let's take a closer look at the 10 dangerous plane landings. Number 10. Miracle on the Hudson. Probably the most well-known story on today's list. The Miracle on the Hudson was the crash landing that stopped the world. Though it's well documented, today's list wouldn't be complete without it. This landing would be amazing had Chesley Sullenberger been the first to try and land a commercial aircraft on water, but he wasn't. He was, however, the first to do it without any onboard casualties. In fact, the National Transportation Safety Board has deemed it the most successful crash landing in water in all of aviation history. Shortly after departing LaGuardia Airport on January 15, 2009, their Airbus A320 struck a flock of geese that crippled both engines. With no time to land at another airport, Chesley Sullenberger made the difficult decision to land on the Hudson River. For weeks, the incredible footage dominated news cycles. There was even a movie made directed by Clint Eastwood and starring none other than Tom Hanks. But if you thought the Miracle on the Hudson was the craziest landing on today's list, just wait until you see number 1. A landing that wasn't quite lucky enough to have a body of water nearby. Number 9. Saved from a rainy day. This incredible footage of a Boeing 767 attempting to land in Malé, Maldives, shows the type of harrowing situation that pilots can face even when there is no massive mechanical failure at play. This flight was coming in during a particularly fierce storm.
Before we go on, like this video, pop the subscribe button, and ring the notification bell right now, or the ghost in your closet will manifest itself tonight.
Number 8. Top off. When Aloha Flight 243 left Hilo for a short trip to nearby Honolulu on April 28, 1988, nobody knew that the flight was about to make history. The overworked and under-maintained aircraft had reached a height of 24,000 feet when the unthinkable happened. As a result of explosive decompression, an 18.5-foot section was torn from the top of the plane, taking with it 58-year-old flight attendant Clarabelle C.B. Lansing, whose body was never recovered. Fortunately, all of the passengers were still wearing their seatbelt when the incident occurred. But one major problem still existed: getting the plane back to the ground as safely as possible. This was the job of pilot Robert Schornsteimer. Together with the first officer Madeline Mimi Tompkins, the two of them began descent, only to have one of the plane engines fail as they approached the runway. Nonetheless, they landed safely at Kahului Airport with 94 survivors, of which 65 were injured. Number 7. Flying blind. Regardless of how miraculous the landing, pilots of commercial aircrafts are almost always assisted by a host of electronic aids that keep the plane balanced and show them exactly how far off the ground they are. It makes the job no less difficult, but it makes what we are about to show you phenomenally impressive. Captain Alexander Akopov was flying a Turkish airline Atlas Global A320 when he found himself in the midst of a sudden and violent hailstorm. The storm completely destroyed his windshield, the front of the plane, and his autopilot and auto track systems, and leaving him just a single small side window to look out of. The severity of the situation cannot be overstressed. Every other pilot on today's list made their landings with the view out of the front of the plane, and at a bare minimum, a fully operational control panel. Alexander Akopov had none of this. He also had 127 other people on board. As the aircraft prepared to land at Istanbul Ataturk Airport, even the ground crew were skeptical that he would succeed. But somehow he did, with not a single injury aboard. Number 6. Out and about. In 1990, British Airways Flight 5390 was the scene of a truly once-in-a-lifetime situation. Shortly after 8 a.m., an air steward entered the cockpit, but as he did, a loud bang was heard, and the left windscreen blew out of the plane. The rapid decompression yanked pilot Timothy Lancaster from his seat. Either fortunately or unfortunately, his feet hooked on the instrument panel. This disengaged autopilot and put the plane into a downward trajectory. At the same time, the door blew off of the cabin and lodged against the accelerator. Now, the plane was accelerating toward the ground as half the crew fought to keep a grip on the pilot, and the co-pilot, Alistair Atchison, fought to regain access to the throttle. He soon regained control of the plane, and while the pilot was presumed dead, the crew didn't dare let go for fear that he would get caught in the engine and take the plane down anyways. Miraculously, not only did the co-pilot land successfully, but Timothy Lancaster also survived with frostbite, bruising, shock, and fractures to his right arm, left thumb, and right wrist. The air steward who had been entering the cockpit suffered a dislocated shoulder and frostbite on his face, with damage to one eye. They were the only injuries reported. Number 5. Attention. Regardless of the scenario, landing on an aircraft carrier is straight up dangerous. These specially trained pilots have to line up to an incredibly narrow and short runway, and if anything goes wrong, they are likely to be left floating somewhere in the ocean. To accomplish this incredible feat, they approach the deck at high speeds, allowing for a hook to snag a specific point on a giant elastic of sorts. This reverse slingshot of sorts helps to bring the plane to a rapid stop. The approach is so dangerous that pilots leave their throttle set to 85%. In case they clearly miss the hook, they may be able to perform an emergency takeoff. Number 4. A-10 Thunderbolt II. In 1991, the U.S. Air Force Major General Paul P.J. Johnson was flying over enemy territory when he was struck by an enemy missile. The blast left a gaping hole in his right wing and disabled his hydraulic system. Yet P.J. knew that ejecting would mean being stranded in uncertain and hostile territory. Somehow, missing an enormous chunk from the right side of his aircraft. Known as a daredevil and leader of several astonishing rescue missions, he wasn't about to go down without a fight. PJ piloted the plane back to safety and landed as if nothing had happened. Number 3. Belly of the Beast. Of all the many working parts on a plane, perhaps none are more vital than landing then. Well, for the landing gear. But on 1 November 2011, Captain Tadeusz Rana didn't have that luxury. After departing Newark, New Jersey, a leak in one of the aircraft's hydraulic systems occurred, resulting in seized landing gear. And short after raising the landing gear, it became apparent that it could never be put down again. The discovery of the flight's fate prompted an emergency landing at Warsaw Chopin Airport in Poland, where the aircraft circled the city for an hour, something that gave emergency crews a chance to respond and allowed the aircraft to burn excess highly flammable fuel. Once crews were in place and the flight had exhausted a satisfactory amount of fuel, Captain Rona grinded the plane along the runway, starting just one tiny fire along the way. In the end, not a single death or injury occurred. So if everything went so well, why was the pilot error deemed to be the cause of this crash landing? Because the whole thing was unnecessary. Captain Rona, who had flown 15,000 hours in the same plane, forgot that a breaker switch could be used to lower the gear electrically. Instead of heroically saving 231 lives, he had actually needlessly endangered them. All that said, when it comes to dangerous landings, this is definitely among the top. Number 2. JetBlue. On September 21, 2005, JetBlue Flight 292 left Burbank, heading to JFK International Airport. But as the pilot tried to raise the landing gear, he couldn't. A decision was made in which the plane made a low pass at Long Beach Municipal Airport so that the ground crews could assess the situation. It was confirmed that the front wheel was locked at a 90-degree angle. The plane had to land, but risked getting on the nose if the wheel broke off. Luckily, the pilot flew to Los Angeles International Airport to take advantage of a longer runway and more advanced safety equipment. In a carefully choreographed move, the flight landed safely at LAX with 0 injuries reported. Number 1. Left wing pilot. U.S. Air Force Major General Paul P.J. Johnson was pretty impressive. But in 1983, 2 Israeli aircraft taking part in a dissimilar air combat training session over the Negev Kali in midair, downing one but leaving the other with just its left wing. As it spiraled towards the ground, the second pilot ordered an ejection, but the first pilot, who outranked him, engaged the afterburners and fought to regain control of the aircraft, and somehow landed the crippled plane successfully. That's all for 10 dangerous plane landings. Which story was your favorite? Have you heard of similar landings? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to Trend Joint for more incredible videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.